नमस्कार, मैं आदर्श यादव गांधी स्टडी सर्कल आर्यभट्ट कॉलेज के तत्वाधान में 21वीं शताब्दी में गांधीवादी सत्याग्रह विषय पर आयोजित इस राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठी में आप सभी का हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं। अब हम हमारे 2 दिवसीय कार्यक्रम के पहले दिन के अंतिम चरण की ओर हैं। कार्यक्रम का तीसरा सत्र, सत्याग्रह एंड कल्चर रेजिस्टेंस। मैं चाहूंगा कि सबसे पहले इस सत्र के लिए हमारे मध्य उपस्थित गरिमामयी अतिथियों का स्वागत करके हम इस सत्र की शुरुआत करें। मैं चाहूंगा हमारे बीच इस सत्र की अध्यक्षता करने के लिए उपस्थित प्रोफेसर मनिंद्र नाथ ठाकुर जी का जी को सम्मानित करें भूमिका। हमारे बीच वक्ता के रूप में उपस्थित डॉक्टर नीरजा सिंह जी को सम्मानित करें विकास। इसी के साथ हमारे बीच उपस्थित डॉक्टर धनंजय राय जी को सम्मानित करें अर्पित। और हमारे बीच अंतिम वक्ता के रूप में उपस्थित डॉक्टर वरदा शंभू जी को सम्मानित करें अनंत। परिचय के क्रम में उपस्थित वक्ता डॉक्टर नीरजा सिंह जी का स्वागत करना चाहूंगा। आप इतिहास विभाग सत्यवती महाविद्यालय दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय में अध्यापिका के रूप में कार्यरत हैं। आपने अपनी पीएचडी जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय से की है। आप यूजीसी द्वारा राष्ट्रीय शोध पुरस्कार से सम्मानित हैं। आपने कई महत्वपूर्ण पुस्तकों का प्रकाशन भी किया है, जैसे गांधी पटेल लेटर्स एंड स्पीचेस, डिफरेंस विद इन कॉन्सेंसेंस एंड नेहरू पटेल, पटेल प्रसाद एंड राजा जी, मिथ ऑफ द इंडियन राइट। हमारे बीच अगले वक्ता के रूप में मौजूद हैं डॉक्टर धनंजय राय। आप केंद्रीय विश्वविद्यालय गुजरात गांधीनगर में अध्यापन में रत हैं। आप 2011 से सेंटर फॉर द स्टडी ऑफ डेवलपिंग सोसाइटीज दिल्ली में विजिटिंग फेलो रहे हैं। राजनीतिक सिद्धांत, राजनीतिक विचार व सांस्कृतिक अध्ययन आपके अध्ययन व शोध के केंद्र बिंदु हैं। अपने आपने अपनी उच्च शिक्षा दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय व जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय से प्राप्त की है। वक्ताओं की सूची में अगले वक्ता के रूप में हमारे बीच हैं डॉक्टर वरदा शंभू। आप महाराष्ट्र नेशनल लॉ यूनिवर्सिटी मुंबई में संस्थापक संकाय सदस्य हैं। आप एमएलएनयू में 2015 से अध्यापन कर रही हैं। आपने अपनी पीएचडी जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय से की है। आप वर्तमान में नेहरू मेमोरियल म्यूजियम एंड लाइब्रेरी न्यू दिल्ली में शोधकर्ता भी हैं। वक्ताओं के परिचय के साथ मैं अब इस सत्र की अध्यक्षता कर रहे प्रोफेसर मनिंद्र नाथ ठाकुर जी को सभा से परिचित कराऊंगा। प्रोफेसर ठाकुर राजनीतिक अध्ययन केंद्र जवाहरलाल नेहरू विश्वविद्यालय में अध्यापन कर रहे हैं। आपने दिल्ली विश्वविद्यालय से पीएचडी की है और उसी संस्थान में लगभग 2 दशकों तक अध्यापन कार्य में समर्पित रहे हैं। इसके अलावा आप फाउंडेशन फॉर क्रिएटिव सोशल रिसर्च के संस्थापक और ट्रस्टी हैं। हाल ही में आपने ज्ञान की राजनीति, भारतीय चिंतन और समाज अध्ययन नामक पुस्तक भी प्रकाशित की है। इन्हीं औपचारिकताओं के साथ मैं इस सत्र के अध्यक्ष प्रोफेसर ठाकुर से अनुरोध करूंगा कि सत्र का वास्तविक शुरुआत की ओर बढ़े। धन्यवाद।
हेलो या बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद और आर्यभट्ट कॉलेज और गांधी स्टडी सर्किल को बहुत बधाई। लगातार ही दो बड़ा कॉन्फ्रेंस गांधी पर ऑर्गेनाइज करके आर्यभट्ट कॉलेज ने ये स्थापित कर दिया है कि गांधी स्टडी सर्किल गांधी के रिवाइवल के लिए बहुत महत्वपूर्ण योगदान कर रहा है। और ख़ास बात यह है कि दोनों कॉन्फ्रेंस में आर्यभट्ट कॉलेज ने जिस तरीके से विषय को व्यवस्थित किया है, उससे ऐसा लगता है कि आमतौर पे जो गांधी पे बहसें हो रही हैं उससे अलग हट के गांधी को एक कॉन्टेम्प्ररी टाइम के हिसाब से समझने की कोशिश की गई है। जिस तरीके से गांधी ने खुद संस्कृति का उपयोग किया अपने सत्याग्रह के लिए, अब एक बड़ा सवाल है कि आने वाले टाइम में व्यवस्था के खिलाफ जो आंदोलन होंगे, यदि वो सत्याग्रही आंदोलन हुए, तो क्या उसमें संस्कृति को हम उसी तरीके से उसका उपयोग कर सकते हैं। गांधी ने जैसे प्रार्थना सभा ऑर्गेनाइज किया, बहुत ही सांस्कृतिक चीज़ थी हमारे लिए। गांधी ने उसको ट्रांसफॉर्म कर दिया एक पॉलिटिकल साइट में। आई रिमेंबर इन वन ऑफ द प्रार्थना सभा स्पीच, people were shouting that we need to arrest Jinnah. And Gandhi suddenly appeared and said that, yeah, we need to arrest Jinnah. And he kept repeating, we have to arrest him. But how to arrest him? I don't have police force with me. I'm not running the state. We can only arrest zina in our heart. And then the whole discourse changed. After that, he delivered 1 hour lecture, and it was more about politics of Satyagraha and cultural resistance, how to resist things which you don't like. So I think in times to come, when the state is becoming very authoritarian, and probably it will become further authoritarian as the crisis will deepen, the mode of resistance, mode of protest, people will have to innovate. There are many innovations in Satyagraha. People have worked on that. Jal Satyagraha is one of the fantastic mode of protesting. So there are other cultural forms of protest. So let us see what our panelists have to offer as new emerging mode of Satyagraha in the realm of culture, and how culture provides uh, space for Satyagrahis in difficult times in which we are gradually entering. So let me begin with Dr. Nirja Singh. Let me invite her, and it's very difficult domain that she has decided to speak on. Gandhi and Patel, very controversial. Probably they belong to similar cultural zone, yet so different. And of course, there's another controversy that despite being a natural leader of the movement, Gandhi did not give him the prime ministership. Was it also a kind of cultural politics? So please. And how much time we have? Around 15 minutes, Satish ji? 15 minutes?
15 मिनट तो चाहिए ही चाहिए होगा, हम इतिहासकार है तो 15 मिनट से कम में तो बात पूरी नहीं होगी. Thank you, Professor.
Because we are already running
Yeah.
late, so it is 4:52. So we'll keep it
हो
10 to
जाएगा.
15 minutes. Yeah, right.
I'll try to finish within the time limit. I thank Aryabhat, Professor Jha, Dr. Dayal for organizing this seminar on this theme and inviting me to speak on it. चूंकि मैं इतिहासकार हूँ और हिस्टोरियन के पर्सपेक्टिव से इसको देखना चाहूंगी कि किस तरह से डिसएग्रीमेंट और डिसेंशन के थ्रू गांधी जी आज भी 21वीं शताब्दी में उनका रेलेवेंस किस प्रकार से है, और इसी के दौरान मैं और अन्य चीजों के ऊपर प्रकाश डालने की कोशिश करूंगी. मोहनदास करमचंद गांधी, widely revered as Mahatma, continues to inspire people across the world, even as concerted attempts are being made and had been made in the past too by ideological fundamentalists to belittle his contributions and describe him as nothing more than a cunning politician, status quoist, and supporter of capitalist order of society. However, there is overwhelming evidence of his remarkable journey and evolution and the continued efficacy of his method and relevance of his philosophy. Gandhiji devoted his entire life to the pursuit of morals and ethics in public life. His politics was inclusive, compassionate, and drew strength from truth and non-violence, and his weapon was Satyagraha. What are those essential truths which Gandhiji embodied and which made him indestructible? The answer could be many. I would highlight here some aspects which made Gandhiji as relevant today as he was during his lifetime. Gokhale, whom Gandhiji called his political guru, noted, quote, "He has in him the marvelous spiritual power to turn ordinary men around him into martyrs and heroes," unquote. It was Gandhi's success in devising the method which he named Satyagraha of turning ordinary people into heroes and martyrs that gave Gandhiji the ability to influence decisively the history of India and indeed of the world. Gandhiji's concept of Ramraj was essentially an ethical order in which truth triumphs and justice prevails. Regarding Gandhian notion of Darid Narayan, there were three ways of looking at poverty. The first view was the Marxist view, which regarded the poor as wretched of the earth with orientation on class struggle and socialistic economy. The second to overcome was the utilitarian view, according to which the solution to overcome poverty lay in capitalism and industrialization. Both the views regarded poverty as a stigma. The third view was the Gandhian view. The view regarded the poor as the extension of the divine, and to be in his service was to be the calling of all. The poor was called Darid Narayan, God in the poor, or divinity in poverty. Patel, in his broadcast on 30th January 1949, said, quote, Gandhi saw the glimpses of the divinity among the poor and the depressed, whom symbolically he called Darid Narayan. In the service of Darid Narayan lay his unique way of life. He inspired us to follow the same path, unquote. This approach did not regard poverty as stigma, but as something to be empathized with. It did not imply celebration of poverty either. It meant that the poor had grace of God and society should perform its duty towards them. The concept did not condone the situation that created poverty in society. The concept of Darid Narayan meant to invoke society's commitment for the removal of poverty, because poor was not to be seen as a marginalized category, but the center around which all political, economic, cultural, and social policies and programs were to be focused. Satyagraha, or truth force, was for Gandhiji was not an abstract philosophical concept, but a weapon forged in the flame of struggle and sharpened on the wet stone of hard political practice. The word literally means to insist on the truth. The heart and soul of Satyagraha is doing or unfreedom, be it racism, colonialism, communalism, caste oppression, patriarchy, denial of democracy, inequity, or economic deprivation. It encompasses a vast array of forms of struggle bound only by the limits set by non-violence. Gandhiji believed that if the masses were politically active, they could secure any goal they desired. For him, non-violence was important not only as a moral value, but because it enabled and necessitated the participation of the people. A non-violent movement could only be successful if it had mass participation, and mass participation could only be secured if the movement was non-violent. Gandhiji demonstrated in movement after movement how non-violent satyagraha worked by placing the government in a no-win situation. It immobilized the government by locking it in an irresolvable dilemma. If it did not suppress a movement that brazenly defied its law, its administrative authority would be seen to be undermined and its control would be shown to be weak, and if it suppressed it, it would be seen as a brutal anti-people administration that used violence on non-violent agitators. In either case, it was the government that suffered a blow to its prestige, and the movement witnessed a swelling of its ranks. Quote, if we do too much, Congress will cry repression. If we do too little, Congress will cry victory, unquote, is how C.F.B. Williams, a British civil servant based in Madras, expressed the dilemma in early 1930. In the Gandhian method of protest, empowerment was achieved through inculcating fearlessness in the people. According to Nehru, quote, the essence of Gandhiji's teaching was fearlessness, not merely bodily courage, but the absence of fear from the mind. But the dominant impulse in India under British rule was that of fear. Pervasive, oppressing, strangling fear. Fear of the army, the police, the widespread secret service, fear of the official class, fear of laws meant to suppress, fear of prison, fear of the landlord's agent, fear of the money lenders, fear of unemployment and starvation, which were always on the threshold. It was against this all-pervading fear that Gandhiji's quiet and determined voice was raised. Be not afraid, unquote. However, it is pertinent to note that both Sardar and Nehru shared deep emotional ties with Gandhiji, which went beyond the mundane spheres of politics, power, and office. In popular perception, Nehru was regarded as the favorite colleague of Gandhiji, but in the eyes of contemporary congressmen, Patel was viewed as his true and devoted disciple, and Nehru was regarded as a devout but critical follower of Gandhiji. It would be seen, however, that in neither case the relationship was totally blind or unqualified. Differences arose aplenty amongst them during the course of the national movement and even after the attainment of independence. Some of the major movements which brought to the fore their differences were quite prominently were relevance of non-violence in political movements and in statecraft, acceptance of Government of India Act of 1935, council entry and formation of ministries during 1936-38, cabinet mission, Muslim League and relationship with Jinnah, socialist, RSS, Hindu Mahasabha, communalism, and finally blunt and seemingly strong speeches of Patel made particularly during the 1940s. Despite these differences, which do arise in any movement for independence of such a diverse kind, the three leaders were in unison over the question of non-sectarian, non-majoritarian politics. To begin with, there existed a basic unity of values and norms between Gandhiji and Patel. The sense of loyalty and bond of personal affection between the two was so fundamental that it continued unimpaired till the end. Gandhiji was always protective towards Patel, knowing his blunt, frank, and forthright temperament. He knew that Patel at times might appear harsh and hot-headed in his speeches, and this might lead people to misunderstand his otherwise noble intentions and dedication to the nation and secular values. When in Yerwada jail in 1932, Gandhiji undertook a fast unto death on the question of communal award. This gave a lot of anxiety to Patel, who too was housed in the same jail along with Mahadev Desai and other Congress leaders. I'll just need 5-6 minutes. I'll just try to complete. Gandhiji knew that this decision of his would give anxiety and tension to Patel. He asked Mahadev Desai whether Patel was angry with him. Mahadev Desai's reply was, he is experiencing great mental strain. Whether you die during the fast or survive, he is anxious to ensure that there should not be around you an atmosphere of dissatisfaction, quarrel, or unhappiness. Gandhiji's reply was, quote, I understand that. Do I not realize how great has been God's kindness to me in giving me the companionship of such an extraordinary man as well, Vallabhbhai? Now, since I have 5 minutes left, तो मैं धीरे जल्दी से जो इम्पोर्टेंट है उसको थोड़ा सम अप कर देती हूँ. अब बाकी चीजें छोड़ देती हूँ जो कि डिस्कशन में आ जाएगा. Patel did express his anxiety to Gandhiji that non-violence might not be a viable strategy in the long run in defending the nation from foreign invasion. He also complained to Gandhiji that socialist and other political groups were ridiculing the notion of non-violence. Gandhiji replied on 1st August 1940, quote, why do you feel uneasy? I would definitely regard whatever you decide as proper, because in the final analysis, a person can only act according to his own lights. The change will come only with experience. I have not the slightest doubt about mine being the right view, unquote. Patel represented Gandhiji's realism in politics. For example, there were differences of opinion over role of non-violence and giving of support to Britain in its war efforts in 1939. There was also differences of opinion on how security of the state was to be organized vis-a-vis the normative principles of non-violence. Non-violence being an ideal, how could it be incorporated in statecraft? Gandhiji talked of non-violence of the strong, but the question remained as to how that position of strength was to be achieved. This he did not categorically elaborate, whereas Patel, being involved in statecraft, was very clear as to what should be the status of non-violence in strategic planning for the security of the nation. Non-violence without a strong center and economy was for Patel meaningless. It was not meant for the weak. However, Gandhiji's views on the practice of non-violence in state management, particularly in defense and security matters, was far too idealistic and ahead of his time. This was the reason why Patel differed from Gandhiji not on policy itself, but with regard to strategy and practices. He wrote to Mahadev Desai in 1939 that, quote, what Bapu's position is not ours. Heart is with Bapu, but that path is blind alley. I am unable to find my way, unquote. Despite his skepticism, Patel's heart lay with Gandhiji. In his speech of 5th January 1947, he said, quote, except India, the world fights sword by sword, but sword does not end the strife. It is a vicious circle. So Gandhiji has asked us to be non-violent, unquote. However, between the two, there existed, to conclude, between the two, there existed a basic unity of values and norms on which direction of the national movement and structure of institutions necessary for nation building were to be decided. The basic loyalty and the bond of personal affection between Patel and Gandhiji continued unimpaired to the last. Patel's speech at Banaras Hindu University on November 25, 1948, after the death of Gandhiji, aptly sums up the emotional and complex relationship he shared with Gandhi. This is slightly long, but I do want to read it out. Quote, I claim to be nothing more than an obedient soldier of him, like the millions who obeyed his call. There was a time when everyone used to call me his blind follower, but both he and I knew that I followed him because our convictions tallied. I am not one given to debates and verbal disputes. I hate prolonged discussions. For several years, Gandhiji and I were in perfect agreement. Mostly, we agreed instinctively. But when the time for a big decision of the questions of India's independence came, we differed. I felt that we had to take independence there and then. We had, therefore, to agree to partition. I came to this conclusion after a great deal of heart searching and with a great deal of sorrow. But I felt that if we did not accept partition, India would be split into many bits and completely ruined. My experience of office of 1 year in the interim government had convinced me that the way we were proceeding, we were heading for disaster. Gandhiji felt that he could not agree with this conclusion. But he told me that if any heart bore testimony to the rightness of my convictions, I could go ahead. Our leader, whom he nominated as his heir and successor, was with me. Gandhiji did not oppose us, nor did he consent to what we thought was right and proper. Even today, I do not repent for having come to that decision, though it was with a great wrench of the heart that we did so. Unquote. However, controversies continued on various aspects of their relationship. They have their origins mostly in subjective sources. For example, it is popularly held that though Patel was a true Gandhian follower, Gandhiji's heart beat mostly for Nehru, and therefore he favored Nehru over Patel for prime ministership. Speculations often pervade popular perception as facts of history, irrespective of their facticity or authenticity. The relationship between Gandhi, Patel, and Nehru is also marred by this mistake. Facts, however, will remain facts. There was no contest for the post of first prime ministership of India. Nehru was generally viewed as its natural and legitimate claimant to the task of the office, despite Patel's name being temporarily floated in certain circles. In fact, choice fell on Nehru as a matter of course by force of history. Gandhiji had named him as his heir as early as 1942. The self-confessed statements of Patel at various fora about his own age and illness-related physical frailty further closed the question of his candidacy. It is also testified by the letters exchanged between Patel and Nehru after Gandhiji's assassination that whatever their differences, they swore complete loyalty to each other and expressed their determination to work together for the common cause of the motherland, especially now that Gandhiji was gone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Nirja Singh. I think it's very difficult to be convinced about it, though. And what really forced Gandhi, or what convinced Gandhi to give the leadership to Nehru. There are a lot of debates about it. Once I was also bothered about it. And I asked many people, Ashish Nandi, D.L. Seth, many of them about this. And they have very interesting answers. Sometime I may share those answers. But I think the point that you made, and that's a very interesting point, that the cultural politics has three important aspects. One is the spiritual power of the leadership, the ethical order, the imagination of an ethical order, and third is the emotional attachment among them. I think you can't judge this relationship between three without keeping these three things in mind. So it is not an ordinary relationship. It's culture of resistance also. The culture of resistance has these three dimensions, at least at that period. And when we start evaluating them from today's point of view, we miss out these points. And therefore, probably we don't understand that how it could be possible. Thank you. So let us move to Dr. Dhananjay Roy. He's speaking on Gandhi, Satyagraha, and Hindi cinema.
After suggestion from Professor Satish, I restricted myself to Gandhi Satyagraha and cultural resistance because the cinema part will be dealt in the different session tomorrow. So I don't want to hijack their very important discussion today. Thank you, Aryabhatta College, Professor Satish, Professor Rajendra Dayal, and my own teacher, Professor Mahindra Thakur, and creative theory and members of creative theory who actually helped to develop some idea of Gandhi's idea of Satyagraha and Satyagraha in cultural resistance. And this is very important to discuss the cultural resistance. And what I am going to do is study of politics of iconography in contemporary India. And I think when we are discussing Gandhi, Satyagraha, and cultural resistance, politics of iconography becomes very, very important and vantage point to understand both Gandhi and Satyagraha and their place in modern and contemporary India. Because Gandhi's is subject to differentiated exhibitions. And these differentiated exhibitions have a different layers and different meanings and different signifiers in contemporary time, many times very confusing, many times very subtle, many a time very direct, and it does matter where does it come from. And I think Gandhi becomes very important in a sense, and he is actually essential referential point in India everydayness due to two reasons. One is Satyagraha, that can be called political action. And this political action is nothing but it should be construed as an action for non-violent state. So Satyagraha means non-violent state in different sense. And second important relevance of Gandhi is epistemological intervention, which can be called transverse intervention. So Gandhi's Satyagraha is important as a non-violent state, and Gandhi's epistemological intervention can be called transverse interventions. So Gandhi's political action is very important because in Satyagraha, both participant and opposition forces both do face transformation. This is not that only I am transforming, I am also transforming oppositional forces. And Gandhi Satyagraha is primarily against the state violence, many a time against through individual Satyagraha, through different actors. So common inclusivity and anti-passivity model becomes very important in Gandhi's political action. When we come to the Gandhi's epistemological intervention or transversal intervention, I think there are two important features, and one is anti-binary or anti-lexical priority in Gandhi's theorization. So Gandhi offers through transversal way of intervention or epistemological intervention that there is an anti-binary and anti-lexical priority to make a community in a non-hierarchical manner. And there's a conflict because Gandhi lacks also historical sense in terms of the conceptualizing community. But the historical weakness or gap is filled by a political action for arrival of political community, and that is the non-lexical conceptualization of political community. So this is a very, very important in Gandhi, that how he, though he lacks a historical sense of the community, but he fills the gap by political action for the arrival of political community or community. This is a very, and lots of experiments can be cited from Gandhi and his action through ashramas and Satyagraha in various ways. Second is Gandhi's transversal or transverse is non-territorialized theorization. I mean, most of the time, and this is a tragedy to understand Gandhi's Hind Swaraj, that how his Hind Swaraj has been subject to both by Gandhi's, supporter and also Gandhi's negator, that is indigenous nationalism. I think that is a wrong reading of Hind Swaraj, and I think modern critique of modern civilization in Gandhi should be understood as non-territorial critique, and that is very important. And here, Gandhi is, it is not a nation-state specific critique, but a critique of pursuance against the imperialist objective. So Gandhi rejects binaries between countries and prioritization of one set of countries over other. This is very important in Hind Swaraj when we see the absence of binaries. I mean, I don't think that Hind Swaraj should be treated as a text of only rejections and the text of indigenous nationalism or the subject of decolonization theory par excellence ever happened to pre-modern, postmodern, and postmodernist India, if that is the case. So Gandhi is important in these two formulations. So let's come back to Gandhi's iconography. And Gandhi's philosophy is important, and we see that his attire, clothes, bodily presentations have had a deep impact on India public sphere. Anti-violent state and transversal epistemology in Gandhi is very, very important. His bodily clothing, walking sticks, spectacle, lion clothes, spinning wheel, ascetic image, sandal, ashram, stalking while walking, seating images while listening or walking, giggling with children, presence of male or female images, visiting colonies of underclass, point out two distinctive characteristics in Gandhi's politics of iconography. One is that the idea of decentralization and accessibility in Gandhi's iconography, cultivated by himself, are crucial summation of non-violence state. And here Gandhi was juxtaposing centralizing tendency of the state. So Gandhi's iconography through centralization and accessibility must be understood against the centralized tendency of the state. And here body is message is important, where half-naked body is a symbol of minimalism and transparency against the Weberian notion of the state, which is based on the violence and the opaque system. Critique could point out that asceticism is chosen by Gandhi, but not due to embedded prevalent condition. But this chosen asceticism is also against the state violence due to the conscious decision regarding choosing it while giving political message. So this is the first thing in Gandhi's political iconography. Second is non-sectarian signifiers, which is the epitome of transverse in Gandhi. And here, if we see how Gandhi was offering non-sectarian signifier against the epitome of against the sectarian nationalism, it becomes very, very important that non-sectarian signifier against the rejection sectarian nationalism. So Gandhi body itself is a secular body, and it appears, Gandhi's body appears as secular body in the absence of an exhibition of a religious body. So this is a very important when we understand Gandhi's body, that is a secular body. And here we see the interaction of lots of symbols due to the absence of non-religious body. So Gandhi's image of the transverse against sectarian nationalism, religious symbolism, masculinity, absolute binary, sheer othering, humiliation, sublime violence, and display of numbers become the theoretical maneuver for practical segregation and exploitation. So there are two contradictory development, and this is the last section of my presentation. And we see that the first development is like heteronomous state. So we have a state which is based on heteronomy in contemporary world, which is a centralized state. And the Gandhi's transverse is compromised due to binaries, absolute binaries of the values as promoted by the heteronomous state. Second is expansion of Gandhi's iconography. So these are the two contradictory development. One side, we see the heteronomous state. Second is expansion of Gandhi's iconography. So there are two types of Gandhi's iconography. One is in state iconography, and that is very important. So in state iconography, we see that naming road like Mahatma Gandhi roads in all important cities, starting institution after his name, placing his picture on Indian currency, compulsory hanging of his famed photograph in government institutions, starting a scheme after his name like MG Narega, using his spectacle for Government of India's flagship program Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Clean India Mission. But there's a people's iconography also, which is a very important, and we should take note of it, how that is different from Gandhi's state iconography. One is Gandhi Diary. Gandhi Diary is becoming very important tool. Placards in protest movement, cartoons in newspaper and walls. An important Gandhi as an important signifier for liquor ban. Gandhi as a sign of Peace Day. High-rise sculpture in metropolitan cities in West. Low-rise sculpture in small town and villages in India. Wall murals. As a character or presence of image in Indian films, and so on. So in this backdrop, when we see the two contradictory development, I submit there are some important questions. And I mean, one is that when we see the marginalization of Gandhi's anti-violent state and transfer by heteronomy and sectarian nationalism. And second, there is a massive production of image of Gandhi. The production of image of Gandhi has increased, circulated, and quadrupled. Some questions are very important when we are trying to understand Gandhi and the cultural resistance. One is, how does one understand these two contradictions, that heteronomous state and the Gandhi's expansion of Gandhi's iconography? If the state has become more violent and anti-transverse, what is the need for reproduction of or reliance on Gandhi's iconography? Moreover, if the Indian society is producing and circulating the iconography of Gandhi on a massive scale, then why is the state heteronomous and anti-transverse? Is there any disjuncture between the state and society concerning the production and circulation of Gandhi's iconography? Fifth, how is rekindling of iconography of Gandhi possible amidst violence and communal religious mobilization? These are two conflicting hypotheses regarding the aforesaid phenomena. In place of conclusion, I propose two hypotheses, which should be read as a hypothesis, not the conclusion. Hypothesis one, the image production of Gandhi is without the philosophy of Gandhi to serve the state and its ideology. Production of iconography by people is the confirmation of the image without concept. This is an unthinking reproduction of image for the ideological purpose of the state. In the first direction, culture industry is an important category. The circulation of image must be construed under this category, where we have some of the features of the first hypothesis: confirmation of schematization, sameness and homogeneity through Gandhi's iconography, ideological monopoly, standardization of mass production, consumer orientation according to unity of production, end of unbridled expression of Gandhi due to totality, obliteration of details. So when we have an iconography of Gandhi in the state, we don't have much details. This is private monopoly of culture, production of repetition of same thing about Gandhi through intervening taste and tickets. So taste and tickets become very important for the production of repetition through Gandhi. Endless cheat and escapist iconography. So we have advancement of individual without individuality. we have this in this iconography multiple spirits in individual, and celebration of purposelessness and confirmation of the very existence of uselessness become a very important mark of this iconography. So we have exchange through advertisement. Reification becomes very important in this iconography. And there is a mechanical movement over the astonishing movement. We were not astonished by Gandhi's iconography, but there is a mechanical movement. And there is an uncritical consensus in this iconography on certain claims. And there is an image replacing concepts. This is my first hypothesis. Second hypothesis is very contrary to the first hypothesis. The image production of Gandhi is democratization due to the destabilizing of a cult that is a monopoly of few institutions in the name of authenticity. By way of the production of image of Gandhi in vivid forms, people are reinventing their own Gandhi and participating in creating various forms of Gandhi. It is the democratization of Gandhi that would force the state to change itself. And some of the important features of the second hypothesis would be the decline of aura, that Gandhi is not sole monopoly of the state. So we have a decline of aura, and that is very important. And this is the Benjaminian kind of reading the second hypothesis. So we have a democratization of art due to technological reproduction, and people are greatly differing the iconography proposed by the state. And there is a shift from ritual to politics. So in the state iconography, there is an emphasis on ritual, but in the people's iconography, there is an emphasis on politics. So in place of cult value of Gandhi in iconography, there is a significance of exhibition value in people's iconography. And exhibition value like cinema, cinema becomes very important as an exhibition value, where audience becomes an expert rather than the receiving dictate from the state. And here blurring the distinction between readers and writers in the second hypothesis, who read and propose Gandhi's as a very important thing. And earlier, a small number of writers for thousands of readers, we had seen those days. Now readers are also writers. So those who are proposing Gandhi's iconography, they are also understanding the meaning of iconography and Gandhi. And literary license of Gandhi's iconography in people has become as a common property. And unlike a painting, which is a highly individualism and individualized subject, cinema is also proposing as a comprehension. So unlike painting, cinema as a Gandhi's iconography is becoming important comprehension. With these two hypotheses about Gandhi's iconography, I end my presentation here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dhananjay. I think this differentiation between state iconography and people's iconography is very interesting. And probably state is also trying to appropriate Gandhi for its own purpose. And also the market. I remember seeing Gandhi's wonderful big statue in front of Asia's biggest mall. The moment you enter, you will find Gandhi meditating there. So I was quite surprised. After a year almost, it was removed from there. So I could not go into the reason why it was removed again. So market is also appropriating Gandhi, as you rightly said. But people have their own iconography. The question, and like state's iconography is interesting. In front of government liquor shop, Gandhi's poster is there saying that liquor is bad for your health. So the revenue that is generated by liquor is spent on Gandhi's iconography to stop people from taking liquor. So there's a contradiction involved here, and people have their own iconographies. How far the people's iconography is available for cultural politics of tomorrow? I think that is the question that one has to really raise. Is it that Gandhi is being emptied out of all political possibilities, the iconography of Gandhi, or there is some possibility there, or a state is forced to use Gandhian iconography as his popular iconography is so powerful. I remember once the Prime Minister wanted to replace Gandhi in the Khadi calendar, and within no time, all calendars were withdrawn, and people protested from all kinds of corners. So are they contradictory? Are they competing to appropriate for kind of cultural politics, state-sponsored cultural politics, and people's cultural politics? And what are the possibilities? I think this is something These are the questions that you will have to really address. Like I remember Anna Hazare movement. The imagination of Gandhi, or the imagination of people, Gandhi in the imagination of people, was reproduced there. And that attracted a lot of people, just thinking that probably the similar kind of movement is going to take place. So is people's iconography so powerful even now that any cultural politics tomorrow will have to engage with that? That's something one has to, and therefore probably state wants to empty it out so that Gandhi should not be available for any popular protest anymore. That should be really addressed. Thank you very much. May I request Varda? And Satyagraha as a democratic protest, making sense of Maratha morchas in Maharashtra, right?
Yes. So thank you. Am I audible? Is it on? Yeah. Okay. So thank you very much, the organizers, Aryabhat College, Professor Jha, Professor Dayal, my teachers, both Professor Thakur and Professor Mahajan are here. So that also makes me feel a little nervous. But at the same time, with a disclaimer that because I'm talking on Maratha Morchas, that this story, or obviously as a result of that story, the paper that I'm going to present is still unfolding in front of our eyes. And this is a very, very humble attempt to see what is happening in Maharashtra in terms of Maratha Morchas, because they have been very popular, they have been vast in numbers, and it is also shaping the kind of contemporary politics in Maharashtra, and particularly as far as India is concerned, the politics of reservations and affirmative action, the idea of OBC, the Mandal and the outfall of Mandal. So all keeping all this in mind in the context of Satyagraha, whether to consider these morchas, these, and interestingly, these are called Maratha Kranti Morchas. So the idea of revolution in the very title of these morchas and the agitations is something that is interesting. But at the same time, I was tempted to compare these morchas with Satyagraha for a variety of reasons. As I started thinking about how do I make sense of cultural resistance and Satyagraha and unfolding of these Maratha morchas, I realized that what is common to Satyagraha and these Maratha morchas, the first and the prominent thing, these morchas are non-violent. They employ hunger strikes as their routine means of agitation, the routine agitation that we see, and the foot marches, which also are very closely associated with Gandhian Satyagraha, are very, very prominent as far as the Maratha morchas are concerned. As I started thinking about what could possibly set apart these Maratha morchas from Satyagraha, the only possible difference probably would, and again, this is an open question that I would like to pose, whether Gandhi would have accepted the end that the Maratha morchas are willing to achieve, the to be included in the so Marathas, I'll in the course of presentation I'll explain all that, but Marathas to be included as OBC and to extend reservations, and the prominent demand was to extend 16% of reservations to the Marathas, which is a dominant and prominent caste in Maharashtra. So whether Gandhi himself would agree to that kind of demand for a satyagraha. Secondly, whether the protesters and the Maratha morchekaris, and that's how we use it in Marathi, whether those morchekaris, whether they fulfill the criteria of being a satyagrahi as laid by Gandhi and the norms and rules which Gandhi. And the third, which is not per se a difference, and it as such, it is in terms of means of media. So Gandhi, of course, exploited the press, which he used very prominently at during his times, and the present day social media and the mass media, whether it has been employed by the morchekaris themselves, the agitators themselves, or whether it is the corporate media, which is and the businesses which are funding this publicity, that is something that may possibly be the point of divergence. So coming to the backdrop and what is happening in the Maratha morchas, as I said, Marathas are the most populous community considered to be dominant in the state in every sphere. They have come out on the streets in unprecedented numbers and with unusual calm to present their grievances. Now, this point becomes very important considering that the Marathas are inevitably associated with the valorous and the, I would like to say, the violent kind of soldierly history of Maharashtra, and Marathas being prominently associated with the history of Shivaji. The symbolism which is also used in Maratha morchas is of course that of Shivaji, and the demand. So the most prominent figure that would emerge out of these Maratha morchas, without doubt. So when we see Maratha Morcha marching, it's a saffron sea. It's a saffron flag having the symbol of Shivaji, having the feast as its symbol, and Ek Maratha, Lakh Maratha as its symbol, as its slogan. Ek Maratha meaning the slogan means one Maratha equates to Lakh Maratha, so lakhs of Marathas. So having this backdrop, having this silent protest, and the most the very I would say the climax of those morchas, particularly in 2018, was the Mukha Morcha. So Mukha Morcha is silent march, and there were no slogans. In fact, people tied some ribbons on their lips and their faces, and they walked, and there were lakhs of people, and the culmination of that agitation was at the Hutatma Chowk, which is in Mumbai, at the Chhatrapati Shivaji terminus, and the iconic Hutatma Smarak, which is symbol of unification of Maharashtra, where people died. So considering all this, so this silent protest, and as I said, the brave and the courageous backdrop for which the Marathas are associated, the nostalgia of Maratha Swaraj, which is also associated with Shivaji and later on Holkars and Sindhiyas, all that, having that backdrop as historical memory, and the Maratha morchas, which are silent, which are passive. So I don't know whether even to call them passive, but that is the stark question that I still have, that this clan having such kind of morchas is something that is not heard of, or that was not something which was expected. So there was no face to these massive demonstrations which were carried out under the banner of Maratha Kranti Morcha, which repeated itself, and there were number of demonstrations across the state. Unknown youngsters, some in their teens, and surprisingly large number of women were at the forefronts of these morchas. While Marathas march without any slogan and disperse without any speeches being made, the placards and the saffron flags they carry have no less of a menacing message. So how did these Maratha, so of course the demand for Maratha reservations and to be included under the OBC category first came up in 1997. However, these recent protests, which started since 2016, there was a specific backdrop. And the backdrop of these morchas was on 13th July 2016, a 14-year-old schoolgirl belonged to the Maratha caste was brutally gang raped and murdered by allegedly 4 drunkards belonging to the Dalit castes. And this was in media, it came to be known as Kopardi rape case in Ahmednagar district of Maharashtra. Several protests and bunds were observed across Ahmednagar district and across Maharashtra to demand speedy arrest and death penalty to the culprits. But after a month, the protest assumed a very different form and contained under the banner of Maratha Kranti Morcha. The demand for speedy justice for the victim was overtaken by the demand for reservations for Marathas in education and jobs. And very interestingly, and as I said in the introductory remarks, apart from reservation demands, because these kind of demands we have been witnessing in different parts of the country, whether Gujars or whether Patels in Gujarat. So these kind of demands to be included in different categories and for reservations is something that we are aware of and has become a common phenomena. However, for Maratha morchas, one of the very subtle yet very dominant demand was repeal of Prevention of Atrocities Act. Because as I said, on the backdrop of Kopardi rape case, wherein the culprits belong to the Dalit caste and the girl belonged to the Maratha caste, this demand also underlined all these Maratha morchas. So the tension between, so of course, when we think about Maratha morchas, the OBC, the present day understanding or the category and the caste which are included under the OBC, they of course oppose the Maratha morchas, because nobody really want, the existing OBC caste do not want to extend the status of OBCs to the Marathas, because they are seen as dominant caste historically. Secondly, even the SCs, they have opposed the morchas, because one of the underlying demands for these morchas was repeal of Prevention of Atrocities Act. So the way it has played out in Maharashtra, because if we were still in, say, early 20th century, the Maratha morchas would look like anti-Brahmin, part of anti-Brahmin movement. However, when we go deeper into the understanding of these morchas, these are the currents that we realize. So starting in 2016, there was a series of Maratha Kranti Morchas across the state of Maharashtra. Several lakhs marched silently, and there was no leader, speeches or slogans. Many such silent rallies have taken place, each being larger than the previous one. These silent rallies are supposedly supported by individual professionals such as doctors, engineers, lawyers, etc., and are executed by faceless youth who would not allow the involvement of any established politician. However, there have been apprehensions, and there have been people and different corners of politicians, and there have been, I don't know even to call them rumors, but the Nationalist Congress Party of Sharad Pawar, it was believed that they were behind sponsoring of all these morchas. So having said this, what made these morchas? As I said, the Kopardi rape case was very, very important backdrop under on which the morchas actually started taking place. The demand for reservation, the response of the state government was in the form of to constitute committees, and there have been several committees even before. Eventually, Narayan Rane committee, Narayan Rane, the famous politician from Maharashtra, who is even now the cabinet minister, under his chairmanship, there was a committee which looked at the surveys and the marginality of the Maratha caste, etc. So a very well orchestrated, I would say, study which did establish that the Marathas were the backward caste and should be included under the OBC category, and to extend 16% of reservation. The simultaneously, there was a legal battle which was fought in the high courts, and the High Court of the Bombay upheld the decision to extend OBC reservation to the Marathas. But the High Court said that only 12% of reservations can be extended. However, in 2021, a five-judge Supreme Court bench rejected this reservation, and this went into a back burner. In 2023, these faceless Maratha morchas have come up with a face, and the face of these Maratha morchas are Manoj Jarange Patil. So he himself is a prominent farmer Maratha leader in Maharashtra. And in 2023, these Maratha morchas have again started taking place. And as I said, it is still an unfolding story. So coming to the concluding remarks, I have spoken a lot, so I'll just sum up in more in a form of open questions and more points for deliberation. Dr. Ambedkar, in his last speech in the Constituent Assembly, equated Satyagraha, as popularized by Gandhi during the freedom movement, as grammar of anarchy. In a democratic setup, citizens are expected to raise their demands and or express dissent through the institutionalized setup and within the framework of law. Therefore, breaking the law in the manner of civil disobedience was believed to create anarchy in the state, which was newly introduced to modern democracy. However, one of the prominent forms of social as well as political protest has been Satyagraha since independence. However, since independence, though one can debate what protests can be considered as Satyagraha and as practiced and articulated by Gandhi, such non-violent protests are often popularized as Satyagraha. In the recent past, Maharashtra witnessed large-scale Maratha protests. Among the other demands, the primary demand of the Maratha Kranti Morcha was to accord other backward caste status to the Marathas and thereby extend benefits of OBC reservations. However, some OBC castes vehemently opposed this demand. Despite fetching millions of protesters, there was no face or leader to the Maratha Kranti Morcha, especially during the first spell of the protest till 2019. Very recently, the Maratha activist Manoj Jarange Patil has emerged as the leader of the Maratha protest. The demands of protesters are partially accepted by the government, and this is the recent development in 2024 itself in the month of January. The demands have been accepted by the state government under the Chief Minister Eknath Shinde. However, it seems by the state government, and a legal battle in the court of law will have to be fought to sustain the reservations within the constitutional framework. So even though the state government accept these demands, now the question is whether that bench verdict which squashed the plea for reservations, whether they would be reviewed or whether there would be another larger bench of 7 judges. That is something that is still we are not sure about that. But the state is saying that they will fight this in the Supreme Court. It seems that in a modern democratic state, non-violent mass protests or satyagrahas open the avenues for negotiation with the state more effectively as compared to the violent means on the one hand, and merely taking up the formal route of appeals and litigation in the court of law. So I end my presentation here. Thank you very much for patient listening.
Thank you, Varda. It's a real puzzle to see how such a apparently militant, culturally militant group is adhering to what is called Satyagraha. And the other point you raised is interesting, that whether Satyagraha is only about the means or also the end. If they are asking for repeal of Atrocities Act, is that Satyagraha or not? So the Agra, of course, has to be a means, but for what is the Agra
Agra
Satya?
for?
Whether Satya is really in their side or not, that should be interesting to see. And it's as it is unfolding, and now the leadership is becoming apparently clear. So one would like to analyze what is the motive behind and what are the possibilities in the movement. Thank you very much. May I open it for discussion? Satyaji, is he on? Can we take another 15 minutes? I'm sure we are running short of time, but let us open it for discussion. So we invite questions, short and sharp questions. Yes, please. Your name and
Lakshita. My full name is Lakshita Rajvanshi, and good evening, everyone. The question is, if Anna is one bit of Maharashtra politics, then Raj Thackeray and Bal Thackeray present another. So where does Satyagraha stand here? Thank you.
Could you please repeat the last part? Raj Thackeray and Bal Thackeray?
If Anna is one bit of Maharashtra politics, then Raj Thackeray and Bal Thackeray present another. Where does Satyagraha stand here?
Thank you. Thank you.
so we can take some questions and then, and any other question? May I request Professor Mahajan to comment on if you want to? Sure. Yeah, please.
Gandhi, you represented him as a non-religious body and therefore looking for non-violence. I thought maybe a person on whose lips Hey Ram was always there. The body is deeply religious, and the challenge really is for this deeply religious body, how did it maintain its non-binary form and respect for the other? I think that's the challenge of cultural resistance, as it were. That might be there. To Vardha, because you posed all those questions in the end, which are, of course, questions which will be difficult to answer. But nevertheless, one could say that now we are at a place where you could say that non-violence and protest are just forms through which you are, and Maninder mentioned this, you are trying to get to the truth. whatever it is. So the truth has to imply, as it were, you are presenting it to somebody. So there must be, as it were, a follow-up. So the bigger challenge really is what happens, because you are presenting a side, you are presenting what you regard to be significant, and to have a conversation and convince the other of the truth of this. So it requires a process to go beyond that apparent protest to something else. But the bigger challenge really is, what if the other person is unwilling to talk and negotiate?
Maninji, may I ask a question? Maninji, I am Alok Tandon. May I ask a question to Dhananjay?
Sure, please.
Okay, thank you. I was expecting little more from this session, because what are the possibilities of cultural resistance in Gandhian Satyagraha perspective in contemporary Indian situation? This is my question. Can we take Gandhian in the past, Gandhi's method of fighting against untouchability as a instance of Satyagraha? If it is so, then can we not do some sort of cultural religious resistance to this hijacking of Hindu religion by the state, politicization of the religion by the state, cancellation of secularism by the state? So this is my question. What are the possibilities of cultural resistance in all these arenas, which are very, very much relevant for our present discussion? Thank you.
Thank you, Alokji. Anyone else? Irfan, Varun, anybody? No? All right, so we can have a round of answers then.
I think someone
we'll-
here has a
Yeah, please. Please.
I have a quick question to Dr. Nirja. Ma'am, a lot has been written about Gandhi and Patel's relationship. I mean, it's very clear from your presentation also and otherwise also that, when two people work together, of course, differences are bound to happen. There were differences between Gandhi and Patel. But of course, those differences were not irreconcilable. That is one thing. I mean, there is no single evidence. If you look at the writings of Patel, he never actually criticized Gandhi on any point of time. We do not have even a single evidence. But now, if you look at otherwise, why I'm asking this question, because I teach Indian political thought, and a lot of students are here. They have a constant question with this, and something which has so ingrained in their mind, I'm not able to convince them. That's why this question I'm posing to you. Otherwise, if you look at, I just wanted to understand through you that there is a lot has been, written about how, Gandhi was against Patel, and, how exploitative relationship and things like that. And through social media and a lot of other concocted stories, these things are so ingrained in the students' mind that they're not willing to believe that, these two people, they have worked together and there was a very harmonious relationship between these two personalities. So, what will be your take on this, please? Thank you.
Yeah, sir. You want to say something? Please.
About the iconography, about what Dhananjay is talking about, and you also very briefly commented on this. The state iconography, Gandhi being appropriated and being hollowed out. So why this duality? Appropriation, what is that? Some soft power, the state is getting some soft power out of that. But that soft power will be used to where? Why is it being hollowed out? So how do we explain this apparent duality?
All right, we can have a round of answers. And should we reverse the order?
Sure.
You would like to?
Yes. So thank you for the questions. As far as Raj Thackeray, Bal Thackeray, and Anna Hazare, I think Maharashtra has been the land of contradictions. We have had Savarkar and Ambedkar. We have had RSS and the communist parties forming around the same time in Maharashtra. So these contradictions are not something that we see only today. But interestingly, the Uddhav Balasaheb Thackeray faction of Shiv Sena, of old Balasaheb Thackeray, has been resorting to a more kind of Congressian way, I would say, rather than the Gandhian way of doing politics. And now they are in the alliance with the Congress in Maharashtra. However, the Raj Thackeray faction is still more, though they haven't been really present per se in the contemporary politics as far as the activism is concerned. They have also been mellowed down their stance as far as the outsiders and the non-Marathis are concerned, or non-Marathi Manus is concerned. As far as the non-violent protest, which Professor Mahajan asked, what if the other is unwilling to talk? Particularly, this question is easy to answer as far as the Maratha Morchas are concerned. As I said, they are a huge population and they have a lot of say as far as the electoral politics of Maharashtra is concerned. So the state and the politicians and the political parties, irrespective of their ideologies, are willing to listen because it carries a lot of electoral weightage. The prominent question, rather, I would like to continue with what you are asking. If it's a insignificant minority and the state or the other is unwilling to listen to, then how do we negotiate and how do we make the Satyagraha effective? I think that is something that we still need to think about. So.
Thank you. अच्छा सर,
मैं इसको जरा सा हिंदी में बोलना चाहूंगी क्योंकि मैं चाहती हूँ कि ये हमेशा से ये कंट्रोवर्सी रहा है, और पटेल नेहरू का भी और गांधी पटेल नेहरू इनके बीच का। इसको मैंने अपने किताब में भी डिस्कस किया है, मिथ ऑफ इंडियन राइट में भी डिस्कस किया, और पटेल नेहरू पटेल करस्पॉन्डेंसेस, डिफरेंसेस एंड कंसोनेंट, एग्रीमेंट एंड डिसएग्रीमेंट वाली किताब में भी। एक ही मुद्दा सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट था जो ये कारण बना। एक तो 1939 के बाद ये डिफरेंसेस आए नेहरू के प्रेसिडेंशियल इलेक्शन को लेके, दो कि बार बार सरदार पटेल ने इनफैक्ट गांधी को लिखा भी कि बार बार एक ही दूल्हे को वरमाला पहनाया जा रहा है, और उनके विचारों में जो है उससे कांग्रेस के अंदर थोड़ी खलल आएगी, जो उनकी सोशलिस्टिक लीनिंग की तरफ ये इंडिकेट कर रहे थे। दूसरा जो मुद्दा आया जिसको नेहरू ने भी लिखा कि पटेल के साथ मेरे कोई डिसएग्रीमेंट नहीं है, वो कांग्रेस पार्टी के एक बहुत मजबूत पिलर हैं, पर मेरे उनसे फर्क है आरएसएस को लेकर के। और जो पटेल का पोजीशन था आरएसएस के ऊपर, उनका ये मानना था कि आरएसएस में मिसगाइडेड यूथ गया हुआ है, जिसकी एनर्जी को हम कंस्ट्रक्टिवली इस्तेमाल कर सकते हैं। इस पोजीशन से ये डिफरेंसेस हुए। सोशलिस्ट कांग्रेस सोशलिस्ट पार्टी जो कांग्रेस के में थी 1934 में जो बनी और उसमें थी, उनकी पॉलिटिक्स खास करके जयप्रकाश नारायण, मृदुला साराभाई, इन लोगों का जो फैक्शन था इस मुद्दे को लेके बहुत अपोज किया, जिसमें नेहरू का सपोर्ट था, और ये डिफरेंसेस कैरी ओवर करते किए। इनफैक्ट जब प्राइम मिनिस्टरशिप की जो इश्यू भी आया उस पर भी। अब जो हिस्ट्री पटेल की, एक तो पहली बात है कोई बहुत मेजर काम सरदार पटेल के ऊपर हुआ नहीं। पहली कोई मेजर काम हुआ वो राजमोहन गांधी का पटेल लाइफ थी, और इतने रानी शंकर दास का भी वर्क था, पर उन्होंने इस एस्पेक्ट को ना लेके जरा एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव और पार्टी पॉलिटिक्स के ऊपर ज्यादा उन्होंने एम्फेसाइज किया। तो मेजर किताब अब राजमोहन गांधी की पटेल लाइफ मानी जाएगी, जिसमें कि ये डिफरेंसेस और ये जो सटल जो ये ऑपोजिशन ये दो फैक्शन के रूप में दिखाए जा रहे थे, ये इमर्ज करके आता है पटेल लाइफ में ही। दिक्कत क्या थी कि राजमोहन गांधी ने भी काम किया, करस्पॉन्डेंसेस इतने हैं, जैसे जो कि आपने भी, प्रोफेसर ठाकुर ने भी इंडिकेट किया कि जो उनकी प्राइम मिनिस्टरशिप को लेकर के और जो कई मुद्दे कश्मीर को लेकर के, रिफ्यूजीज को रीसेटल कहाँ किया जाएगा। नेहरू का एक प्रपोजल था कि मिक्स्ड कॉलोनीज में ना करके मुस्लिम्स जो आ रहे हैं, हिंदूज जो वहां से आ रहे हैं और जो यहाँ के भी मुसलमान हैं, वो अलग अलग कॉलोनीज में सेटल किया जाए, और पटेल ने इसको अपोज किया कि एक गेटोइजेशन हो जाएगा। तो इस तरह के जो डिफरेंसेस थे, पर इनको अनदेखा करके हाईलाइट कई अदर फैक्टर्स को किया गया टू शो डिफरेंसेस बिटवीन पटेल एंड नेहरू, की वो बहुत बेसिक था। खास करके लेफ्ट ने इसके ऊपर बहुत ज्यादा रोल प्ले किया। आरएसएस को मुद्दा बना के, आरएसएस था पटेल का पोजीशन में जो शिफ्ट आया वो हम गांधी के असैसिनेशन के बाद हम देखते हैं, पर उसके पहले एक सॉफ्ट पोजीशन सरदार पटेल की ऑफ कोर्स थी। पर जो प्राइम मिनिस्टर वाली पोजीशन थी उसके ऊपर बड़े सारे लेटर्स थे जिसमें पटेल का हेल्थ उस सिचुएशन कंडीशन में नहीं था, एक उम्र का फर्क बहुत था, एक डायनामिक यंग लीडर की जरूरत थी जो कि इमर्जिंग इंडिया एज अ नेशन स्टेट की, और इतने करस्पॉन्डेंसेस है पर कहीं पे भी इवन इन पटेल लाइफ में, बाद में राजमोहन गांधी अपने कई जगह इंटरव्यूज में बात करते हैं कि उनके हेल्थ का भी एक फैक्टर था, एज भी एक फैक्टर था, पर उस पटेल लाइफ में कहीं भी वो दिखता नहीं है। तो पटेल को जिस तरह से और इनके डिफरेंसेस को लिया, उसमें भी एक आइडियोलॉजी और एक पॉलिटिकल पोजीशन का भी प्ले देखा जाता है। तो आई थिंक अगर बहुत उसको ऑब्जेक्टिवली बहुत ढंग से इसको इस एस्पेक्ट को नहीं देखा गया है, और इसीलिए सोशल मीडिया और इसमें कई तरह की एक अलग तरह की हिस्ट्री क्रिएट की जा रही है और इनके रिलेशनशिप को लेकर के, और इसको और भी हाईलाइट कर दिया गया कि भारत रत्न सरदार पटेल को नहीं दिया गया और राजेंद्र प्रसाद को उनको पहले दे दिया गया। तो उसमें भी पॉलिटिक्स का ही रोल प्ले हम दिखता है, और आई थिंक एक बहुत ऑब्जेक्टिव रिसर्च की जरूरत है। पर बाय एंड लार्ज देयर वाज कंसेंसस, क्योंकि हम पटेल और नेहरू को we find them on the same side of history, ऐसा नहीं है कि हम कहीं अलग देख रहे हैं। तो ये मतभेद थे, पर मेजर मुद्दा लेकर के आरएसएस को लेकर के ये डिफरेंसेस थे। थैंक यू।
My presentation was paper in making, and thank you, Professor Mahajan, for your comment, and Dr. Alok Tandon and Professor Dayal. Just this is the tentative comment, and thanks, and I take comment seriously and will ponder over it and while completing the paper. Just two ideas. One is when Gandhi is commenting on Ram Rajya, I mean the Ram Rajya term or Ram is very, I mean, out of two, if we calculate Gandhi's writing, out of 2 crore words, he hardly used a few times this Ram or Ram Rajya term. And when he was using, in a sense, that there is a transition from truth is God is truth to truth is God, and then God was then redefined, in a sense, self-realization. Whenever he 7-8 times he spoke about Ramarajya, here the concept of righteousness was a very important, and the combination of I mean, Ram and Rahim, rather than just a religious body. In that sense, I use, but I look at this aspect very critically again. And I thought that the body is a site of experiment. And here, on his body and Mary's method, his engagement with the one Dr. Murray was known as a very important doctor who rejected basically allopathy, homeopathy, and naturopathy, and came to this conclusion that hydropathy is a very important. And Gandhi was agreeing to hydropathy, not Ayurveda, which is generally believed in a contemporary time, and where body was becoming, and Gandhi's some of the comments were derived to make this conclusion. But I'll come back, I'll think on it. Dr. Tandon, and why untouchability, protest against untouchability is not considered Satya. I mean, there's a methodological difference between Satyagraha and the constructive program. And I consider that the constructive program is a very important against untouchability, and because constructive program is continuum, Satyagraha cannot be continuum. And untouchability, he proposes in constructive program, second item on untouchability, that this which is a very important based on immediacy, immanence, based on extra parliamentary and many other things. So I think that is his part of the constructive program. It can't be called just Satyagraha. And why we have two development state supports a people's iconography, that is also a site of struggle. How do one locate Gandhi? And this is primarily, and Gandhi becomes very important for some people or state because he offers kind of utopia. And the utopia, sometimes you don't like utopia because you like utopia. Sometimes you like utopia for postponement of the utopia. So Gandhi's utopia would be likable but unachievable. So in state appropriation, it is likable, unachievable utopia. So you appropriate for making it defunct in terms of ending the anti-binary thesis. So this is a site of a struggle between two types of, three types or four types of positioning vis-a-vis Gandhi or iconography, where whether one would like to have binary or not, territorial violence or not, idea of violence or not, truth or not. And for example, Gandhi start all his resolutions with Hindu, Muslim, I mean, he uses term communal unity. And I remember long back when we were discussing that, can we have a secular state when some community is communal, or communal society and the secular state is possible? Some of were, I mean, this was the old problem in political theory and political science. And I think that this is about the struggle between two position or three position or four position, and according mobilization for the reshaping and rechanging of the res publica. I mean, that is very clear.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think the three major points coming out from the paper, trying to see a link. One is that, and these are lots of questions. One is that, well, and it's a question that we have to really address. The one kind of majoritarian cultural politics or hegemonic cultural politics is being countered by today another kind of hegemonic cultural politics. Can there be a non-binary counter politics, or can there be non-binary cultural politics based on Gandhi's ideas? This is one thing that I think these three papers addressed, and there could be three models of that has been discussed. Second is that looking at the present situation, when resistance is becoming difficult, will there be any new form of cultural resistance? And can Gandhi's model play any role in that anymore? Because the state is not the same state anymore. The kind of issues emerging now are very different issues, difficult to combine people together and to have that kind of unity that Gandhi used to command at that moment, because the enemy was one and it was easy to really target that. So will Gandhian method work? Will Gandhi's iconography work for such kind of resistance, new resistance? And then what are the conditions for cultural politics today? The conditions that Nirja mentioned, spirituality and trust and all those, are they still available in current political situation? If they are not, then what could be new preconditions for a cultural politics of Gandhian kind, where one can create non-binary hegemonic, counter-hegemonic project? That, I think, is something that the question this session has raised, and I'm sure we need to ponder upon them. Thank you very much. Thanks for the wonderful session.
Thank you.
Things so good, real problem is how can one see this? I mean, it's really out. One of my students presented a paper on this.
सभागार में उपस्थित सम्मानित इस सत्र के अध्यक्ष और तमाम वक्ताओं का आभार। इस सभागार में मौजूद जो तमाम श्रोता हैं उनका भी आभार। कल फिर से इस राष्ट्रीय संगोष्ठी की शुरुआत इसी सभागार से होगी, इसी सभागार में होगी। और उससे पहले आप सभी से अनुरोध है कि सभी वक्ताओं से अनुरोध है कि बाहर चाय की व्यवस्था है। हाँ, सभागार में उपस्थित तमाम जो श्रोता और वक्ता हैं जिन्होंने अपना समय दिया है और जो भी गंभीर चर्चा, एक सार्थक चर्चा हुई है आज, इसी के साथ, इसी उम्मीद के साथ हम कल फिर मिलेंगे कि कल भी एक गंभीर, एक सार्थक चर्चा होगी जिससे हम कहीं ना कहीं एक सार्थक निष्कर्ष